right, take one. We're going to be trying Hackle winged spinner. This with a biot body, and we're going to do our best. Let's see. I'm going to start by getting our hook securely in the vise, right behind that barb. And I'm going to be using yellow in hopes that it shows up better on camera. Not that yellow is necessarily a bad idea. It is, after all, egg colored. So we're going to start our thread about a third of the way down the shank, or about 2 lengths of the hook eye. Clip that tag end, but hold on to it. I'll show you something to do with it later. I'm just going to put it off to the side. I'm going to wrap down just a little bit, and I'm going to select some done hackle fibers for the tail. And if you're looking for hackle fibers on a cape, these little short but wide feathers on the side are often your best bet. They're too short and wide to do anything else with, and it's better than going to the back of the cape. So I'm going to pluck one of those off, and I'm going to stroke these feathers down to line the tips, and I'm going to do a loose pinch and kind of even up the feather barbs, and I'm going to rip off a small clump, like 8 to 10, depending on the size of your fly. I'm going to measure them out to be the length of the hook from bend to hook eye. I'm going to transfer that to the back bend of the hook. I'm going to catch them with my thread and then wrap them down. I'm lifting them up and a little bit towards me to keep them on top of the hook shank. Now, that spare bit of thread that we saved from before can be used in a nice easy way to split those tail fibers. You take it, you come underneath the hook, and just loop it around the bend back here. Then, with a bodkin, or in this case a toothpick, pick out which fibers you want to separate and just bring that thread up and between them. Doesn't have to be tight, a little loose can be fine. You adjust the tension to spread the fibers, and you just bind it off. If you were doing it now, that looks nice. That's a nice splayed tail. So, now we need our biot. We have a dyed turkey. We're going to take one biot and just rip it down. Now let's see if this shows up. If you see on the biot, there's this side with the notch. This little indent here. That is the smooth or translucent side. This other side, where, I don't know if you can see, it's got this little dark ridge, that's your fuzzy side. If you wrap with the fuzzy side in the back, you get those nice ridges all the way down. If you wrap with the fuzzy side in the front, you'll cover it up as you go, and you'll get a very smooth, tapered body. Which one you want is up for debate, but I'm going to do it with the fuzzy side showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it in with this notch down and the fuzzy side up, so that when I go to wrap it, it's going to fold over and bring that fuzzy side towards the back end. That's a long explanation, but it's also fine. Just tie it in, give it a few wraps, and see if you're going the right way. So I'm going to tie in that biot by the tip. And then, because we can't really build bulk with the biot, we're going to smooth this body out with the thread to give it a nice even spinner body. So I'm going to give my thread a twist to the left, or counterclockwise if you're looking down on it like this. And what that does is it unwinds the thread and flattens it. Like floss, it allows me to build a nice smooth body. I'm going to bring this thread up forward so we don't get in our way. Now we're going to wrap our biot. In the old days they didn't have this, but nowadays we have super glue. And the liquid stuff is just a little easier to work with because it dries faster. And you don't need much. You're not doing this to make it bulletproof. You're just laminating that biot to the thread base so that when a fish gets it, they will hopefully not tear it up. Let's see. I almost wrapped that biot going the wrong way. Even then I folded it. Which way you tie it in might come down to your tying technique. Now, we've got our biot, we got it started. What I'm going to do is just spin the vise. You might need to take an extra wrap over that back end because it's thin, but otherwise you're just going to keep moving forward. And you can space this. You can space this out pretty good because this biot gets quite wide towards the end. Okay. That looks pretty good to me. We want to be at least 2/3 up the hook shank with our body. We can always cover it up with thread, but ideally we don't really want to build up too much bulk. So I'm just going to catch it and clip it. If I look a little clumsy, it's because I'm reaching around a camera. All right, next step. We need our hackle for our wings. We're going to use grizzly, and we're looking for a feather with barbules rather, approximately 1 hook shank in length. So you sometimes have to just hunt and dig through the cape. And you're looking, I think this one's gonna work. If it's a hair too long, who cares? But you don't want to be too short. You want to still float. That looks fine to me. And then we're going to take our hackle feather and we're going to strip away all this soft, webby, fuzzy stuff towards the bottom. And don't be afraid to be ruthless. I'm going to take that off. Okay, so I've stripped our hackle. And I'm going to clip the stem right there. And holding the feather parallel to the hook shank, I'm going to tie it in on the side closest to me. Some tight thread wraps. And I'm going to bring my thread towards the eye. And that little bit of bare stem, is just going to give us a little bit of wiggle room in case that feather tries to spin on us and go all funky. It makes our first wrap neater. So that's 1 wrap. I'm going to do 5. 2, 3, 4. Well, this feather's a little short. We'll do just 4. And then we got 4 wraps. We're going to bring it back to the middle of the wraps. I'm going to take 2 wraps right in the middle, and then our third is going to be to bring us up towards that hook eye and catch it with our thread. And sweep these fibers back, take 3 good wraps around it, and 1 or 2 in front to kind of save your work. It also lifts that hackle up away from the hook eye, and you can just come in with open scissors and just nick it off. No worries about snipping your hackle fibers on the fly. So right now we've got a full dress fly, and actually it looks pretty good. Try to take that and it's chasing those spinners. You know, sometimes they're looking for the ones escaping. But we're gonna make this a split spent wing. So to do that, I'm gonna rotate this to the bottom so we can split these bottom fibers. I'll grab a clean toothpick so you can see better. That one's got glue on it. I'm gonna use a toothpick to split these hackle fibers a little bit. They don't need to stay permanently. I'm just kind of gently folding them over to make a path for my thread and kind of helping me to eyeball it. Because splitting the fibers evenly is not always the exact middle of the hook shank. It's got a whirl and a twist to the hackle fibers. You gotta eyeball what's even on each side. But that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to take my thread and loosely go in between and back and bring it up and around like so to make a diagonal wrap. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to go back diagonal, up and around. I'm going to take 1 wrap to kind of save my work and see how I look. Not bad. We're going to do that one more time. Under, back, over and around, and then diagonal back up to the hook eye. How's that look? Pretty good. Doesn't have to be dead perfect. We're gonna put some dubbing underneath there in a second and that'll fix anything. If you have any trapped hackle fibers, now is a good time to either clip them or you can just kind of sweep them, tie them back a little bit. No harm in that. Don't be afraid to get in there and manhandle a little bit. Just clean that up. Okay. Now, top side. Gonna do pretty much the same thing. I'm gonna divide this left and right. And as you can see, I'm not folding it all the way down. I'm just making like a V for my thread to get in there. If you have trouble getting your thread down in there, you're trapping fibers, a little wiggle can sometimes get you through. Now these first wraps I'm doing, both top and bottom, they're not super tight. They're kind of loose to kind of get me over that hackle. And then when I get to the other side, I can tighten it up a little bit. Over here, I can tighten. But, there we go. Again, you don't have to crank these. These can be fairly loose gathering wraps. So what you don't want to do is smush these fibers so that they turn into a little paintbrush like this. You want them spread out. More surface area is more floating. And if you look at a mayfly spinner, the wings are actually quite wide. I think they even have a little tiny small set of wings behind the main ones. You want to give it a little bit of breadth. That looks good. We're going to reinforce that with a little bit of super glue. Just the tiniest drop will do you. We're not looking to make this tooth-proof per se. We're just making sure those wraps and those hackles don't slide around on us after, hopefully our 10th fish we catch with this fly. All right, now we just need some dubbing to cover this up. I'm gonna pull out a little bit more thread, add a very thin amount of wax. I'm just using kind of the edge of the wax there. And now we need dubbing. All we got is rabbit. So this is going to give us a little bit of a buggier body. We have this rust-colored rabbit dubbing. Proper dry fly dubbing is a little finer, has less of these guard hairs. But who knows? The fish might like it a little buggier. What's pleasing to our eye ain't always what matters. Now I'm going to take very tiny pinches of dubbing, and I'm just going to spin them onto the thread. And you'll notice I'm spinning in this direction. Why is that? If you remember, spinning our thread to the left unwinds it. Spinning it to the right winds it tighter. So if I wind with the direction of the thread, I'll get a tighter noodle. And doing small clumps will give you more even and tighter noodles. Because that little clump of hair going on top of that hair kind of overwraps, traps it in, lets you squeeze that down a little tighter. Take one tiny bunch more. A little thin spot. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take my thread. I've got a little space between the fly and where the noodle starts. I'm going to bring that over to the back. And if I need to, I can take one wrap to get to my noodle. And then I'm going to go over top once, twice, and then I'm going to bring it behind, and then I'm going to go underneath once, twice. And I'm going to look top and bottom. How am I looking? Fairly even on top. I need a little more on the bottom. So that's the way I'm going to come back up front. And then I'm going to put on just a tiny bit more just to get that head. Just to give it a little bit of a head there. Less is more. Just sweep these fibers back and kind of clean up this head a little bit. There we go. And then you're accidentally going to break your thread on your bobbin, but don't panic. We're almost at home plate. Just get this rethreaded. There we go. So, just gonna find that thread. Do a little bit of wrap back over it. There we go. With open scissors, just nick that thread. Done. Okay. Now, we're at home base. Anyway, we got our half hitch tool. Very handy. Take a wrap, like so, and just transfer that to the hook and slide it off. That secures us and finishes off that broken thread. Now you can finish the fly by just taking a couple half hitches and sliding them on. But while I got you, I might as well show you how to whip finish by hand. You take 2 fingers, you wrap your thread around them like so. You take that join, or where that thread crosses, and you bring it right up to the hook shank, and you take this left hand finger, your index finger, and just bring it over top. You do 3 turns. I'm just gonna nick my thread off. I still got that broken thread. Nick that. And that looks pretty darn good. I'm gonna put a little bit of nail polish on the head. Secure that whip finish. And I'm being a little liberal. I'm not caring about getting on the hook eye. So I can show you a nice way to clean that out if you get polish in the hook eye or glue or anything. You can take any old feather. These little leftover hackle tips are great for small flies. This one I think will be able to fit this big old mama jama through. And you just take that stem and just pull it through. Acts like a chimney brush. Just pulls out all of that head cement, nail polish, whatever you use. And here's a little, show that again with the little hackle tip. Just poke it through and pull it. I'll tack in one final tip before I sign off. If you're like me, sometimes you crowd the hook eye. What I mean is you get thread wraps up there, you get glue or material up there, and you're blocking up the hook eye. And that's a pain. What I use for that is I often have leftover soft hackle, pheasant body feathers, these kind of feathers with a thick stem, like so. So what you can do is just take that and poke that through and tug it through. It starts to get tight. And as the glue dries, this hackle stem that's wedged and squeezed in there, because these hackle stems are quite soft, you can squash them flat with thumb and fingernail, it will hold that hook eye open and rescue whatever mistakes you've made. And as the glue dries, it'll dry with the hook eye open and you don't have to clean it later. But this one is fine. Pull that back out. That is our finished rusty spinner. Nice swept wing, bushy wide profile. Should catch many fish.